The first thing I hear is the scream of metal as the world splits open, and for a heartbeat, I think I've died. Until I realize the sound is coming from inside me. Shadows rush through the garden like they've been waiting centuries to wake, twisting around my hands as if hungry for something I don't understand. I stumble backward, breath caught, terrified of my own heartbeat, when I see him watching from beyond the broken gate. His eyes sharp like he already knows what I've become. The night wind carries dust and warning, and even though we're strangers, his gaze feels like a hand gripping my fate. He steps closer, not afraid of the darkness curling around me, as if the danger is familiar to him, almost expected. For a moment, I think he's here to save me, until I see the cold ache in his expression. He didn't come for me. He came for the man who raised me, and destiny is whispering that neither of us will leave untouched. Amara wakes before dawn, her heartbeat uneven as she tries to convince herself the shadows she summoned were only part of a dream. The silver light slipping through her window feels different this morning, heavier, as if it carries the memory of something she shouldn't have been able to do. She presses her palm to the cold glass, expecting nothing, but flinches when the frost trembles beneath her touch. Across the courtyard, guards move with unusual urgency, and she wonders if they're searching for the stranger with the storm-gray eyes who watched her like he already knew her secrets. She tries to shake off the thought, but his expression, haunted, determined, keeps returning. She doesn't know why she cares, only that something inside her shifted the moment he stepped toward her in the dark. And part of her fears that if she sees him again, she won't be able to pretend her life is ordinary anymore. Kale moves through the forest, skirting the estate, each step reminding him of the promise he made years ago to destroy the man who stole everything from him. Yet last night won't leave him alone. The girl, Amara, should have been nothing more than a piece on the board, a weakness he could use against her father. Instead, she's become a question he can't answer. Shadows don't rise for ordinary people, and the way she looked at her own hands as if they were foreign still pulls at him. He tells himself he's only observing, gathering information, staying disciplined, but he can't forget the fear in her eyes, or how something inside him tightened when she stumbled. He's losing focus, and Roth's voice echoes in his mind, warning him that mercy is the quickest way to fail. Still, he finds himself circling back toward the estate, needing to see her again even if it destroys his resolve. Amara steps into the library seeking quiet, but the silence feels too heavy today, thick with secrets. She traces her fingers along old book spines, searching for stories that might explain the darkness she felt rising inside her. Every tale of ancient power she finds ends in ruin, and fear coils low in her stomach. A soft footstep behind her makes her turn sharply, relief softening her, when she sees Cirrus instead of her father. Her friend tries to make small jokes, but Amara can't hide the tremor in her voice when she asks if people can change overnight. Cirrus studies her with gentle worry, unaware of the truth Amara can't explain. Outside, the sky darkens even though the hour is early, and Amara feels the same strange pull in her chest she felt last night, as if someone unseen is standing at the edge of her thoughts. Kale slips past the outer patrols as dusk settles, following a forgotten path that leads close enough to the estate to hear faint voices drifting through open windows. He reminds himself this mission is everything, that he's come to tear down Theron Vale's empire stone by stone. But the closer he gets, the more he remembers the way Amara recoiled from her own power, how lost she looked. He expected a monster's daughter, not someone who seems trapped inside her own life. He shakes the weakness from his mind and focuses on the plan. But when he sees her silhouette through the balcony curtains, the thought of using her as leverage twists into something sharp and wrong. This is a dangerous shift, and he knows it. Yet he stays, watching her from the shadows, unsure if he's protecting her or betraying himself. Kale returns to the ridge overlooking the estate, telling himself he's only there to study patrol routes. But his eyes keep drifting to the balcony where Amara appears each morning. He watches her move slowly, as if weighed down by a truth she hasn't spoken. And something in him stirs with a feeling he doesn't want to name. He knows better than to grow attached to anything, especially the daughter of the man he plans to destroy, yet he can't shake the memory of her trembling hands wrapped in shadows. It feels impossible that someone so gentle could hold something so dangerous inside her. Horse, orange trace, geek. I do something inside her. As the sun begins to rise, Amara lifts her face toward the forest with an expression that makes Kale's chest tighten, like she's silently asking the world for answers. He tells himself he should leave, but his feet remain rooted, pulled by a force he doesn't understand. Amara walks through the market square under the escort of 2 guards, yet the bustle around her doesn't ease the eerie sense that someone is following. She scans the crowd, expecting danger, but instead feels the subtle comfort of a presence she can't see. The memory of the stranger's solemn eyes from the garden has haunted her dreams, leaving her more curious than afraid. She tries to focus on the normal rhythm of life around her, the chatter of vendors, the clatter of carts, but everything feels faint compared to the pull at the edge of her awareness. When a sudden gust whips through the market, stirring dust into the air, she turns sharply, certain she'll see him. But there's only the shifting crowd, and she's left with the unsettling truth that she wants to see him again, even if she shouldn't. Their second meeting happens by accident, though it feels like fate guiding both their steps. Amara slips away from her guards to breathe in the quiet woods, her thoughts tangled with questions she can't ask anyone else. When she hears a branch snap, she stiffens, expecting danger, but her fear melts into something softer when Kale emerges from the shadows. The air thickens between them, charged and fragile, as if the world is holding its breath. He should leave, but he can't ignore the way her eyes search his face, looking for answers he isn't ready to give. She thanks him for not approaching her in the market, surprising him with her awareness. He tries to keep his distance, yet every word she speaks pulls him closer. Their conversation is brief, but it changes everything, leaving both shaken by the heat of something they don't yet understand. Back at the estate, Lord Theron's presence fills the great hall, with a tension that coils around Amara like an iron chain. He questions her about the market, his tone too smooth, his eyes too observant, and she feels the familiar dread of disappointing him. She answers carefully, hiding the truth of the stranger in the woods, but she senses he already knows something has changed in her. Theron dismisses her with a clipped order to return to her studies, yet his gaze lingers on her hands, as if he fears what might awaken there. Amara leaves the hall, with her pulse racing, realizing this is the first lie she has ever told him. Ming's what kind out, and it frightens her how easy it was, especially when she remembers Kale's quiet voice and the way it made her feel seen for the first time in her life. The moment Amara and her escort disappear beyond the gates, Kale descends the hillside with a pace quicker than his thoughts. He knows he's crossing a line he can't retreat from, yet something about her unsettles the vengeance he has lived for. He remembers the shadows that wrapped around her, and wonders if she even understands the danger she carries. As he reaches the forest path she traveled earlier, he kneels to examine faint footprints, feeling a sharp pang of guilt for tracking someone who looked at him with trust. He tries to silence the part of him that wants to protect her from the world and from himself, but it only grows louder. For the first time, revenge feels too small compared to the truth awakening between them, and Kale realizes he is already in more trouble than he ever planned for. Amara lingers in the quiet corner of the library long after sunset, her fingers tracing the edges of forbidden texts she's too afraid to open. A strange emptiness curls inside her, as if her soul is reaching for something just out of sight. She can no longer ignore the changes thrumming beneath her skin, or the memory of shadows answering her fear. When she finds a worn page describing lost bloodlines and ancient gifts, the words make her breath catch. None of it seems possible, Yet something inside her responds with a pulse of recognition that steals her calm. She closes the book when footsteps echo in the hall, hiding the trembling in her hands. If her father discovers what she's searching for, he'll lock every door around her heart. And even worse, he might be the one truth she can no longer trust. Kale moves through the forest at a steady pace, but his mind is far from focused. He keeps replaying the look on Amara's face during their meeting in the clearing, the mix of fear and hope tangled together like threads she didn't know how to separate. Every instinct he's trained screams at him to cut all ties and finish the mission, but the thought of disappearing from her life stings deeper than he expected. When he hears the distant clash of steel, he reacts instantly, sprinting toward the sound. He arrives just in time to see masked men surrounding someone on the path. Realizing the target is Amara, something inside him snaps clean through. He doesn't hesitate. He throws himself into the fight, every movement fueled by a rage he hasn't felt in years, and the terrifying realization that losing her would break something he can't rebuild. The world feels suspended as Amara crouches behind a fallen log, heart pounding in her throat while Kale fights with a ferocity that both terrifies and captivates her. She watches the precision in his every strike, the way he moves like someone who has lived his entire life on the edge of loss. When the final attacker falls, Kale turns toward her, chest heaving, eyes burning with a mixture of relief and fear he can't hide. She rises slowly, unsure if she should thank him or question why he came at all. His hand trembles when he reaches toward her, then stops inches away, as if afraid his touch might shatter the fragile trust forming between them. The silence between them hums with things unsaid, and when their eyes lock, Amara feels the truth settle inside her like a quiet spark. He didn't save her because he had to. He saved her because he couldn't do anything else. Later, they sit beside a narrow stream where the forest muffles the world into a soft hush. Kale keeps his gaze fixed on the water, wrestling with words he never planned to speak. Amara studies him, noticing the exhaustion in his posture and the flicker of pain he hides behind silence. When she asks why he was there, his answer is shaky, almost too honest. He couldn't stay away. The confession hits her like a warm shock, thawing something she didn't realize had been frozen. She admits she felt him watching over her, long before she saw him in the woods, as if her heart recognized his presence before her eyes did. Their conversation drifts from guarded truths to painful memories, each sentence weaving them closer. By the time the moon rises, she knows one thing with startling clarity. This connection between them is no longer a fragile thread. It's becoming a bond strong enough to terrify them both. Night deepens by the time Kale escorts Amara back to the estate's edge, keeping to the shadows where no guard will see them. A heaviness settles over him as the walls grow closer, reminding him of the truth he still hasn't spoken. Her father isn't just his enemy. He is the monster who destroyed Kale's life. Amara senses the shift in him and pauses beneath an old oak, her expression soft with worry. She tells him she feels something changing inside her, something dark and powerful she can't control. Kale steps closer, his voice low and steady as he promises she isn't alone, even though part of him knows he shouldn't make promises he might not survive to keep. When their fingers almost brush, a spark leaps between them, sharp and electric. It leaves both breathless, knowing this moment marks a point of no return. The estate shifts into a tense quiet the next morning, as if the walls themselves sense danger creeping closer. Amara stands alone in the courtyard, the air strangely heavy, and every instinct tells her something is coming. She tries to steady her breath, but the memory of last night with Kale lingers in her chest, warm and unsettling. The moment their hands nearly touched keeps replaying, filling her with a confusion she can't name. When she looks up, she notices unfamiliar riders approaching the gates, their armor marked with a crest she doesn't recognize. Fear coils in her stomach, whispering that her father hasn't told her everything. The guards straighten, gripping their weapons, and Amara feels the same dark energy stir beneath her skin. She doesn't understand it, but she does know one thing. Whatever is coming will change her life again, and she isn't sure if she's ready for the truth, waiting to break open. Kale watches the same riders from deep within the forest, recognizing the crest immediately. They belong to a faction that has been hunting Theron for years, ruthless men who would destroy anything tied to him. The realization hits him like a blade to the ribs. Amara is in danger, more than she knows. He clenches his fists, torn between the mission he has prepared for and the girl who now fills every thought. When Roth's warning echoes in his memory, Kale feels the sting of guilt. He knows he should be celebrating the arrival of enemies who might weaken Theron's hold on the kingdom, but instead dread smothers him. If they realize Amara carries power, she'll be the first they target. He can't allow that. He moves through the underbrush with fierce purpose, knowing that stepping closer to her means stepping into a fight he may not survive. Inside the hall, Amara confronts her father with a boldness she doesn't recognize in herself. She demands answers about the riders, her voice trembling but clear, and Theron studies her with a sharpness that threads fear through her ribs. He tells her only what benefits him, spinning half-truths that leave her aching with uncertainty. When he steps closer, she feels the weight of years spent obeying him, but something in her cracks. She asks him directly if he fears her, and for the briefest moment his eyes flicker, not with anger, but with something colder. That tiny hesitation sinks deep, confirming the worry she has tried to ignore. Her father isn't protecting her. He's controlling her. And suddenly the walls she's lived behind her whole life feel too tight to breathe in, too full of secrets to trust. Kale slips into the estate grounds under the cover of dusk, every movement fueled by urgency. He finds Amara in the garden, her shoulders tense, eyes distant as she wrestles with truths she cannot speak aloud. When she hears his footsteps, she turns sharply, and relief flickers across her face before she can hide it. Kale tries to warn her about the riders, but she's distracted by the weight of her father's deception. She confesses that something dark inside her is growing stronger, harder to control, and fear glimmers in her voice. Kale steps closer, gently urging her to trust herself. She looks at him with a desperation that shatters his resolve. He wants to protect her, even if it means betraying the mission he's lived for. And when her fingers brush his, neither of them pulls away. The night erupts into chaos. Flames burst from the outer wall as the faction of riders launches a violent assault, their war cries shaking the ground. Amara and Kale race toward the courtyard, and the sound of clashing steel echoes through the estate like a nightmare. Amara's pulse roars in her ears, the dark energy inside her rising fast, responding to fear like a storm breaking free. She sees her father standing atop the steps, barking orders with a fury that chills her. For the first time, she sees the cracks in his control. Panic, ambition, desperation. Kale draws his blade, already moving to defend her. But Amara's attention is fixed on the shadows swirling at her feet. They coil upward, hungry and wild, as if answering a command she never gave. When she meets Kale's eyes, she knows everything has changed. There is no going back. The world blurs into fire and screams as Amara stumbles through the courtyard, shadows snapping around her ankles like living chains. She doesn't understand how to control them, but they surge with every panicked breath she takes. Kale fights beside her with fierce precision, cutting down any enemy who presses too close. Yet even he glances at her with a mixture of awe and fear. The riders push forward, shouting that the girl is the key, that her power will end them all if she awakens fully. Their words strike something deep inside her, feeding the rising storm she can't contain. Amid the chaos, she catches sight of her father, watching her with an expression she's never seen. Dread. It makes her stumble. If he fears her, then everything she believed about him has been a lie, and the truth she avoided is now unfolding like a blade aimed straight at her heart. The assault pushes toward the inner walls, and Kale pulls Amara behind a collapsed pillar, trying to give her a moment to breathe. She's shaking violently, her hands flickering with shadows she can barely keep contained. Kale cups her face with trembling fingers, forcing her to meet his eyes, his voice low and urgent as he tells her she isn't the monster her father built her to fear. She wants to believe him, but the darkness inside her feels like it's tearing her apart. When another explosion rocks the courtyard, Kale shields her with his body, gritting his teeth as debris rains down around them. She whispers that she's losing control, but he only squeezes her hand tighter, promising she's stronger than whatever is trying to claim her. For a moment, the storm inside her quiets because of him, and it terrifies her more than the shadows ever could. Amara is pulled back into the courtyard when the riders break through the line of soldiers, their leader pointing directly at her. A surge of dark energy bursts from the ground beneath her feet, answering her fear with violent force. She screams as the shadows twist into spiraling tendrils, lashing out at anything that moves. Kale tries to reach her, but the power pushes him back like a violent wind. Amara falls to her knees, feeling the darkness claw up her spine, filling her with strength and terror in equal measure. The riders shout that her power was never meant to protect, only to destroy, and the thought shreds what little calm she had left. Her father shouts her name from across the courtyard, but his voice feels distant, hollow. The shadows surge higher, and for a horrible moment, she wonders if she's becoming exactly what he feared. Everything fractures when Amara's power finally breaks free in a burst that shakes the ground. Kale is thrown backward, crashing against a stone arch, pain erupting through his ribs. But he drags himself to his feet, refusing to let her fall alone. Amara stands in the center of a swirling storm, eyes wide with terror as shadows bend to her every heartbeat. She begs them to stop, her voice barely audible beneath the roar of magic. Kale pushes through the spiraling wind, calling her name with a desperation that cuts through the chaos. When she sees him reaching for her, something inside her snaps back into place, but her father steps between them, shouting that she belongs to him, that her power is his to command. The betrayal in his voice shatters her completely, and the darkness surges in a violent pulse that sends soldiers sprawling. Kale barely manages to catch her before she collapses. The battlefield falls into a strained quiet as Kale supports Amara in his arms, her breath shallow, the shadows retreating like a wounded animal. Her father shouts orders, demanding she be brought to him, his voice cracking with fear and obsession. But Kale refuses to release her. He steps back, putting himself between her and the man who ruined both of their lives. Amara lifts her head weakly, her eyes glistening with heartbreak as she whispers the question she's been afraid to ask: why her father feared her power instead of protecting her from it. Theron's silence answers before he speaks. Kale tightens his grip, feeling her tremble against him. She realizes then that the only person who has ever truly fought for her is the man she was never meant to meet. And as fire crackles around them, she understands the truth with painful clarity. Her destiny might destroy her father, but it is Kale's presence that will decide whether she survives it. Kale carries Amara into the safety of the forest outskirts, each step weighted with fear that she won't wake. Her body trembles in his arms, the shadows still pulsing faintly beneath her skin like an echo of the storm she unleashed. When he sets her down near the old stream, he brushes her hair from her face with shaking fingers, stunned by how fragile she looks after wielding power strong enough to shake stone walls. She stirs, whispering his name with a softness that steals his breath. He tells her she's safe for now, but the truth presses hard against his chest. Her father won't stop until he controls her or destroys anyone who stands in the way. Amara grips his sleeve weakly, begging him not to leave her. Kale promises he won't, even though staying means defying everything he's lived for. And for the first time, he doesn't care about the cost. Word of the attack spreads fast through the estate, tightening fear around Theron like a vice. He storms into the war room demanding answers, but every soldier avoids his gaze. He knows the riders came for Amara, and he knows why. The old prophecy he has buried for decades claws its way back into his thoughts, filling him with a panic he refuses to show. He can no longer hide the truth. The power in her blood wasn't meant to be controlled, and the wrong emotion could ignite destruction beyond anything he can contain. Worse, Kale has taken her. Kale, the son of the man Theron once betrayed. Rage cracks through his composure, fear twisting into possessive anger. He vows to drag her back no matter the cost, and the look in his eyes makes even his most loyal guards step back with unease. The hunt for Amara has begun. Amara wakes again to find Kale tending a wound on his shoulder, his movements careful yet strained. She reaches for him instinctively, guilt tightening her chest when she sees how badly he's hurt. He brushes it off with a faint smile, but his eyes reveal the pain he's trying to hide. She asks him why he fought so hard for her, expecting a practical answer, something rooted in strategy or necessity. Instead, Kale hesitates, then confesses that he couldn't watch her fall, not after everything he's lost. His voice shakes as he admits she's become something he never expected. A reason to stay alive. Amara's breath catches, a warmth blooming inside her even as fear coils around the edges. She whispers that she's afraid of what she's becoming, afraid of hurting him. Kale takes her hand, steadying her with a quiet certainty that makes her heart ache. Roth finds Kale first. The older man steps from the trees like a shadow, his presence sharp and unyielding. Kale stiffens instantly, knowing the confrontation he's been avoiding has finally arrived. Roth's gaze falls on Amara, then on the shadows flickering beneath her skin, and his expression hardens. He demands Kale remember the mission, remember the family they lost, remember the blood Theron spilled. But Kale meets his eyes without flinching. He tells Roth the truth he's been hiding. Amara is not her father, and revenge means nothing if it destroys someone innocent. Roth argues that mercy is weakness, but Kale stands firm, feeling Amara's trembling presence at his back. Roth's disappointment cuts deep, yet Kale chooses her anyway. In that moment, Roth realizes he has truly lost the boy he raised to vengeance. And Kale realizes he has finally chosen who he wants to be. Night settles in heavy and cold as Amara, Kale, and Roth move deeper into the forest, following a narrow trail that leads toward the old ruins. Roth walks ahead, silent and brooding, while Amara stays close to Kale, her hand brushing his every few steps. She feels different now, more aware of the power humming in her blood, more afraid of what it might force her to become. Kale senses her unease and gently links his fingers with hers, grounding her with a warmth she didn't know she craved this desperately. When they reach a clearing where the moonlight touches an ancient stone arch, Amara feels the shadows stir again, responding like a forgotten memory, awakening. Kale steps closer, promising he'll stay with her no matter what truth waits in the ruins. And for the first time, she doesn't feel alone facing the darkness ahead. The ruins breathe with ancient silence as Amara steps beneath the arch, her pulse sensing with a distant rhythm buried deep in the stone. The shadows inside her stir gently, not violent this time, but curious, almost guiding. Kale stays close, his presence steady and grounding, while Roth circles warily with a hand on his blade. Amara feels a tug in her chest, a whisper urging her toward the center of the chamber. When she reaches it, symbols carved into the floor glow faintly, responding to her touch like an awakening memory. She feels the truth rising, not born of darkness, but of lineage meant to protect, not destroy. Kale watches her with awe, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. For a moment, the world feels still, suspended between fear and revelation. And Amara realizes this place doesn't want to break her. It wants to show her who she truly is. The quiet shatters when the underbrush outside rustles violently, Roth reaches for his weapon, and Kale steps in front of Amara, just as Theron emerges from the trees with soldiers at his back. His expression is a storm of rage, desperation, and something close to fear. He demands Amara return to him, but his voice cracks, betraying the truth he can no longer hide. Amara steps forward, trembling, yet unbroken. She tells him she knows about the prophecy, about the power he tried to bury inside her. Theron tries to deny it, but the shadows at her feet pulse in answer. Kale grips her hand, steadying her, and Theron's fury ignites at the sight. He declares Kale a traitor, the son of the man he once betrayed, and orders his soldiers to seize them. But Amara lifts her chin, refusing to run. She's done letting fear dictate her life. The confrontation explodes as Theron charges forward, shouting that Amara belongs to him. Soldiers rush in, but Kale blocks their path with fierce determination, fighting not for revenge anymore, but for the girl whose life reshaped his own. Roth joins the fray, his movements sharp with old strength, cutting a path through the attackers. Amara stands frozen, at first, torn between fear and fury, until one of the soldiers reaches for Kale. Something inside her snaps. Shadows surge upward, not wild this time, but controlled, shaped by her will rather than her fear. The ground trembles as she steps forward, the power settling into her hands, like it's finally found its rightful place. Theron stares at her, shocked, unable to deny the truth any longer. She doesn't need him to wield her power. She never did. Theron lunges toward her, fueled by terror more than fury, shouting that she doesn't understand the danger she carries. But Amara meets him with a calm she has never felt before. She tells him she knows the truth now. Her power was never meant to be his weapon. It was meant to protect others from men like him. The air thickens as the shadows gather, coiling around her like a shield made of moonlit smoke. Theron hesitates, the truth breaking across his face in a flash of painful recognition. Kale reaches her side, breathless, blood on his cheek, but pride shining in his eyes. She extends her palm toward her father, not in violence, but in final judgment. And the shadows respond, forming a barrier that pushes him back, stripping away his authority and leaving him exposed before all those who once feared him. The battle ends not with a strike, but with a surrender. Theron falls to his knees, defeated by the truth rather than Amara's power. Soldiers lower their weapons, stunned by what they've witnessed. Amara steps forward, the shadows fading into soft wisps around her, and declares that she will not be controlled by fear, his or her own. Kale watches her with a quiet awe, realizing she has become the person destiny feared, and the world needs. When she turns to him, her expression breaks into something fragile and hopeful. He reaches for her hand, knowing their future won't be easy, but certain they will face it together. Roth stands nearby, tired but relieved, seeing a new beginning forming where vengeance once ruled. As dawn breaks over the ruins, Amara feels the weight of her past lift. And with Kale beside her, she finally walks toward a future she chose herself.